Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the City Council Urban Affairs Committee meeting to order. It is Tuesday, December 5th. We have two items on our agenda. The first is order number 23-100-8823, the application for a special permit from Attorney Simacanian on behalf of SUCIU LLC, doing business as Excella Storage, to add additional units to a non-conforming storage facility to be located at 846 Boston Post Road East in the Wayside District. We have Attorney Simacanian coming up, and if you will introduce who you have with you. Everyone should have received an updated document.
Yes, Councilman, we thank you, Attorney Acadian, our engineer of the project, Hancock, Dan Bremser, and my client, the husband of Catherine. Can you turn the mics on? Green lights.
Thank you.
Do I have to start over? Yeah. All right, thank you, Councilor Roby. Attorney Acadian for the applicant, represented by Dan Bremser from Hancock. He'll do most of the speaking about the revisions to the plan, and the husband half of the husband and wife owners of this storage, Alexis, and just to, I don't know if you want just a brief, just to bring everyone up to date. We did have the public hearing seemingly a long time ago. It was good. Councilors had a lot of input, and what's gone on since that time is a number of meetings and conversations between city officials like Tom DiPersio and others, and what you have before you is a culmination of those discussions and modifications, an attempt to satisfy what we perceived and what folks stated was their concerns, mitigating, if you will, conditions to make the project satisfactory. I'm going to let Dan run through those additions. Apologize for the, we did the best we could with the plan in terms of being able to see it. The one change, if you will, that is important to note is that when the structural engineering took place to add the 10 units onto the existing foundation, it was determined that the existing foundation was not adequate to support. If I'm speaking incorrectly, let me know. But it was not adequate to support the 10 units, so a new structural foundation needs to be built at a slightly minor different spot than what is present. That required us to go back to Tin so that he could review it and give his blessing to the revised project, at least as it related to that one zoning issue. He was fine with it. I think you have on record his quote-unquote blessing of the application from the city planning view. But there's a bunch of stuff that I'll have Dan address if you wish. Okay, Counselor?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Actually, I'll stand up by one of the big screens here. Sure. So the property that Excella Moving and Storage owns is a lot down here and a lot up here. The existing house, a dilapidated house right here, whole purpose is to, as you know, change it to storage units. And as Sam mentioned, first thing we told Alex was that taking the decking of the house off the foundation that's there, it wouldn't structurally hold, it wouldn't act as a retaining wall. And so Alex went through a couple of iterations with different structural engineers until we found a structural, because we had in order to keep it in the same place, we're really tight to the sideline of Route 20. And so he did find a structural engineer that was able to give us a design that does function. We went to conservation. We're still continued at conservation. We have to go back to conservation once we finished all our other steps. One of the things conservation wanted to see is this is the 30-foot wetland, no disturb. So the gray line that's on the plan that you have in front of you, that's the existing house. So we're pulling the entirety of the new storage units and the wall that's gonna be built around it to hold it up, entirely outside of that 30-foot. And in the process, it slides a little bit over this line, but he owns both properties, so it's, the only reason we show it as a dark line, property line, is because one parcel is land court and one part is recorded land. And as Sam mentioned, we met with the building inspector, Tin, and he was okay with our orientation on how we're doing this. What Alex is also planning on doing is we have a proposed sidewalk coming out of the upper unit, so it basically is going to act like a walkout, just like the house that's there. So there's 5 units that will come out at grade where the existing garage, that elevation, and then 5 units up top. He's going to have a ramp coming from here and stairs next to it so that they'll have access up and around to get into these upper units right here. The other thing that we have added is a proposed 6-foot-tall vinyl fence on the property line, which we talked about a couple of different options with Tin, and he felt this was the best option, so that's why we have that. And be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So basically, the property line pretty much abuts Route 20, is that true?
Correct. That's the, so this is Route 20 right here.
Right, so the fencing is gonna, so, there's a sidewalk still right there now, right?
No, there isn't.
Okay, they're gonna put a sidewalk in at
So-
some point.
Right,
In
and
the
we
very
actually-
near future,
Yeah.
they're planning to put a sidewalk in. Do you know if there's any eminent domain issues with the property being that close to Route 20?
Excellent question. So we show the easement from the taking that's relative to that new work, that's the dash line. There's no taking in front of this property.
Okay.
And it's not a taking, it's just an easement for, during construction purposes. And we also took this plan in and met with Tom DePercio, the city engineer. He tells me that the way things are being reconfigured, nothing's coming closer to the property line than the existing curb. I guess the sidewalk is actually designed to be built in this area anyways. It's
Yeah.
built inside the line of the curbing.
Because it's 4 lanes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the, space-wise, there's, nothing is, under the current plans, are gonna be built any closer to
Okay,
it.
I wanted to make sure you at least were in the loop on that, so thank you for that.
Well, excellent question.
But so the intent, because if you're coming down to Senza Boulevard, you see that building dead spot on as you come down the street. You don't see the other side of Route 20, so you don't see what Senza Boulevard is.
Right.
But having come, I live in the neighborhood, so I come out that, I've seen that building for years. It's nice, or I'm glad to see that it's getting addressed, And so there will be basically an opaque fence that will be there at the end of the day. So you won't be able to see through it. The owners, those who will have privacy getting in and out of their units, and no one's going to have the ability to stop on Route 20 to drop off something there, because they won't be able to get to it.
Exactly. In fact, Alex said his plan for these units are, he's moving and storage, so he has, quite a few storage units here. These units, because he knows they'll be a little more difficult to get into, he's planning on using those totally for his own moving portion. So when he has storage for his moving people, that's part of the reason why he had us design the ramp specifically for the height of his moving trucks, and it's everything's been designed so that they're not going to be used, those aren't going to be used by the public, those are just going to be used by him.
Oh,
those,
excellent.
those top units.
Okay, at least at the beginning, but yeah.
Well,
that's-
that's the plan, yes.
Yeah, okay. No further questions, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? I guess to follow up on those questions, the storage units themselves, it says they're 8 by 20. How tall are they? And my concern is, on 20 that slopes, you're going to be level. You're going to put 2 storage units on top of each other and a 6-foot vinyl fence on the ground, which may not completely block.
No, you're absolutely right. So, but realize it's a walkout. So the first level is going to be only about it's probably about 6 or 8 inches higher, roughly, than the existing top of foundation is. So the only unit that's really above the existing grade is that next 8-foot unit. So you're absolutely right. You have, if you stood 6 feet tall on the far side of the street, you probably would see over the 6-foot fence, you'd probably see the top couple feet, plus or minus. I mean, you'd have to look at the grading to know for sure. But yes, it'll be a little bit higher than the fence, but you can only build a 6-foot fence, otherwise it's a spite fence.
Other people with questions? Councilor Nabin.
Yeah, just one question. Have there been any changes to the design of the units since this came before for a public hearing? Are these still basically shipping containers stacked on top of each other?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite.
Have there been any changes to the design of the units since public hearing? Or are they still the same?
I was not at the first public hearing, but I assume they're the same 8-foot by 20-foot by 8-foot high.
Like shipping containers? Yeah. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Councilor Landers?
quick question. I know you have to go vinyl fencing, especially with rock salt and traffic and everything like that. Will they be white vinyl, or could you be looking at maybe a brownish, or there are different color of vinyl fences?
Do you have a preference?
Well, white vinyl looks good on a colonial house, you know, a nice corner lot or something, and looks very good with a colonial house. But I'm not so sure a white vinyl, you know, to do what you want it to do, cover up part of the caves. So I don't know if I have a preference or not, but it'd be worth looking at, though.
Thank you.
That's all.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So these are basically containers that are being stacked, right? That's the fundamental
Correct.
design. And you can get the fencing in green or something like that for camouflage or something.
So we can, any color,
Yeah,
color is not
Yeah.
gonna be a problem.
It's probably best, how you probably look
yeah,
best.
yeah. So,
Forest green type thing.
right, nothing neon, but yeah. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to just read a couple of communications that we received, and then we can start going through the decision. First one is from Building Commissioner Tway, who says, Chairwoman Roby, in the opinion of this office, the proposed changes do not constitute significant changes to the original proposal and would not require a new filing. Please feel free to contact this office if you have additional questions. Please find the original special permit application is submitted on February 9th, 2023. Exhibit A, supporting documentation to the original application. And Attachment A, the updated plan last revised November 6, 2023. We have a communication from Kevin Breen, Fire Chief in Marlborough. We've reviewed the draft special permit for the proposed storage units at 846 Boston Post Road East. I agree with the building commissioner's position regarding this newest version being minor with respect to changing the foundational support and overall scope of the project. We at Marlborough Fire Department have no additional concerns with this project as proposed. We have a communication from David Georgie, Marlborough Police Chief. With respect to this proposed project, I do not recall issues pertaining to traffic flow or vehicle movement. However, there was discussion regarding the aesthetics of design as it abuts Boston Post Road East, and I believe the city engineer mentioned that in his response. And then finally, we have communication from Thomas DePercio, the city engineer. I spoke with Priscilla Ryder from Conservation, and we have the following comments. Number one, we recommend the following be added to number 5, stormwater and erosion control management. Quote, stormwater from new impervious surfaces such as the proposed walkway shall be managed through new infiltration structures. Stormwater from the gravel parking area shall be managed through new vegetated swale, buffer strip, or equivalent. These measures should be approved during detailed site plan review. Number 2, we recommend an additional condition be added, screening. The site shall be screened from view from Boston Post Road with a fence and/or vegetation. The applicant shall request permission from Mass Department of Transportation to plant vegetation within the roadway layout in front of the proposed fence. And number 3, the plan shows structure encroachments into the city layout of Old Boston Post Road. Have these been corrected? I do not know the answer to number 3, or specifically the encroachments. I know that there was some encroachment, but I believe you took something down that was encroaching on the
Unit.
backside.
Yes, go ahead.
The plan that you have in front of you shows a dashed line for the former location of the length of the building. There is still a minor encroachment. This was a pre-existing non-conforming into the street layout. That one unit taken off now, there's just one corner that's just slightly in there.
That should address his point. It's a good one, but I'm way more concerned with the other 2 points. So I just want to make sure that this procedurally can work. In other words, I provided the council committee with the proposed finding. Tom's 2 changes are easily inserted into that finding, which I can do tomorrow morning, if that's okay, and send it to you guys, who I assume that we have to send it over, or someone's going to be sending it over to the council for the city.
If there's a motion this evening to finish this up, I could report it out for the meeting on the 18th. It could go to the city solicitor to be put in proper form.
Prior to that time?
No, it would be on the
Okay.
18th.
So the council could vote even though it's not in final form, or?
It would have to be referred to the solicitor, so this would have to get carried over to the next
Unless I could get them.
legislative.
Unless we could get them to act. The problem, as the councilors, I think, are aware, is that the public hearing was a long time ago, and then if we move into January, we have people not here that can't vote. I'm just trying to find a pathway to get in front of the council, as the expense involved nowadays in doing notifications to neighbors of what, I mean, it's almost a $2,000 bill, so we're trying to avoid doing that. I know we talked about this a little bit, but maybe I misunderstood.
We have, on rare occasion, and I guess I would run it by since the president is here, if you could work with the solicitor to any changes that are adopted today to make sure that the final document was on the
For your
agenda for the
meeting of the
18th.
18th or something.
But that would be the only way we could really do it. Otherwise, we extended this to the 31st
Okay.
of December, but our last meeting is the 18th. So we'd have to do another extension on the 18th and carry it over. So, Mr. President, I'll throw it off to you.
So, Madam Chair, I'd still like to get an opinion from the solicitor if the new councils can't just read the stuff just like any council that misses a meeting. I don't know the answer to that. I would like the answer to that. I'll tell you, based on where we are now, it's going to be hard pressed to get an approval on December 18th, Mr. Kanian. It's just, I don't think it's going to happen. I'll tell you my concern right now, I still don't know what this looks like. And I would encourage the councilors, we're going to vote on something that we don't know what it looks like, and we all know we don't like shipping containers. So fences, trees, heights, you need something to give us so that we can hold you accountable when you leave here, that it's going to look like what you show us. All I've got is basically a site plan that says layout of material. My opinion, you got to get it through urban affairs, and I'm not on urban affairs. But I would be hard pressed to support something that I don't know what it looks like. And I know your original PowerPoint, but that original PowerPoint has now changed because you've now done things that aren't here anymore. So just my opinion.
And I would echo those comments. I do think that the visual that we had the last time was what sort of disappointed me. I didn't like the look of storage containers. I still don't like the look of storage containers, even though I can't really see how much you would see from either coming from DeCenzo or driving up 20 from either direction, especially coming from the east going west, where you would be on that side of the road. This is a special permit, so my understanding, and I guess we could get the ruling, the new counselors would not be able to vote because they didn't participate in the public hearing, and they weren't even counselors when the public hearing was held. So you would be looking at
Having to get all 8 votes of those that
the
remained, is
counselors
that
that were
it?
there.
I mean, this is the first I'm hearing this from Councilor Ossing. I mean, we've been playing the game here. We've been going along, we've been meeting with various city officials. We've made numerous changes to these plans. And now I'm hearing because they're storage containers, it's a storage facility. I mean, of course they're storage containers. So, you know, I mean,
Madam
But
Chair?
they have a different look than the ones on the back side of the property that you cannot really see from Route 20.
that's not what was indicated. What was indicated is we don't know what they look like. So now, I can't argue both those. Either we do know what they look like and we don't like them, or we don't know what they look like.
But we all know what storage containers look like. Tractor-trailer storage containers are ugly, I'll use that word. And that was what we were told was what was going to get used, 8 by 20 boxes, 2 on top of each other, 5 in a row. So I don't think that's changed from the original proposal, except for maybe the number of them. I think also the way they were.
Oh, it's really not important at this point. If the president of the council doesn't see this happening in 2023, then we have to go back to the drawing board. We'll come back with a new filing and a new public hearing, and it'll be another 22 grand for these people to notify everyone. I mean, it's just, in my opinion, sad, but that's okay. I mean, we'll do what we have to do. These folks are committed to it, and, I mean, I thought we had a working relationship, and I was fully anticipating, and judged by the questions and the address, and how we addressed some of the issues at the public hearing, I expected a positive vote from this committee. I'm happy to make the changes suggested to not only by Priscilla Ryder, who's been all over this thing, I mean, all over it, but also by Tom DePercio. I'm happy to make the changes in the proposed findings, and that's where we were coming from. This has an ambush feel to it.
And I'm sorry you feel that way. I guess we sort of had the same comments yesterday where people didn't read the tea leaves.
Yeah.
I mean,
I get it. I get it. I
going
could've
back
been
to that
told that.
original public hearing, I don't think there was anybody in this tables that liked the fact that you were using storage units that would then be looked at from Route 20. If you come back with a new one, I would suggest that you look at building something different, even if it's use those and frame it so that it looks like a building. Have a facade. We talked about using the house as a facade and putting them inside the walls of the house. So I think that message was given at the public hearing.
Nope, this is the first I've ever heard. This is the first I've ever heard of turning that house into a storage facility. This is the first I've ever heard of, Counselor.
Well,
I don't know, I mean, does anyone talk to me about that or talk to any of these folks about it?
I
No one
think it got
has.
mentioned.
I mean, it's absurd to think that that dilapidated house would be used for anything but firewood at this point. Okay? It's animal
Dilapidated.
infested, it's completely awful.
Didn't say the house, the
foundation
fac-
is awful.
Which might be true, but I think just the concept. Did I see your hand, Counselor Nabin? No. Counselor Ossing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Attorney Kane, I'm going to take exception to what you said. This is the first time you're before the committee. I'm looking at the transcript from the public hearing. Councilors Perlman, Oram, Landers, all said everything about not liking it, and your response was, we'll discuss this in committee. This is your first opportunity before this committee to discuss it. So to say you had everything locked up, you're the second attorney in less than a week, and I could maybe go to 3, that says they thought they had everything covered. You don't have everything covered till the votes are taken. So I get nervous when attorneys start telling me, well, we thought everything was good. No, you have to present a project that passes muster with this committee. And again, I would encourage you to either watch the public hearing or read the transcripts, because you're all over it saying you're gonna do stuff. So, to be upset with the council because you've waited till December to bring the project before us. I've got all the emails from Karen telling you back in late September to get going, and we haven't seen anything. So to blame it on the council, I believe that you're not painting the correct picture.
I don't want to use the term blame. I don't think that's fair. I don't want to blame it on anyone. But I want to be very clear, because this, I mean, Counselor, we have been in front of various city officials addressing all of those issues that you're talking about. You just made comments that made it sound like we came in here at special hearing in September, we talked about updating and addressing plans, did nothing until just now in December, like you just said, okay? That is anything but the truth. There have been numerous meetings with Priscilla Ryder. We went to with your site plan review. We've met with them. We've addressed all of these issues. Now, I get it. There's not a picture here in the presentation of what it's gonna look like. But we know what storage facilities look like. But I don't wanna argue with council. If you folks want us to do more, want us to refile, not meet the deadline, because we're certainly not gonna get 8 out of 8 votes, we'll do what you want us to do.
Any other further comments? Counselor Landers?
Quickly, Madam Chair, you know, I think we all realize that we need more storage, all right? I mean, you got apartment dwellers, you have other people that are moving in and out, you know? Quite honestly, Sim, I would like it to be a good-looking facility. Now, if you can do it with, you know, as Katie Roby mentions, you know, the trucks or something, I'd like it to be good. Look around Marlborough. There are some nice-looking storage. You can almost, you know, think of the one next to McGee's. You know, I was shocked when that went there. Look at the one out in Semirano Drive, you know? And I bet they're doing very well. You know, I think Kane's over the Hudson-Marlborough line, you know? I would like something that's good for you, good for the city.
Sure.
In other words, you know, that's the entrance to Marlborough. You know, you got Curly's house, and you got a few other things, and you got the geese, but all of a sudden, you know, you want it to look good.
Fair enough, Counselor, but we're gonna see 6 inches of these things behind the fence that was put in the plan at the urging of various city officials. You're gonna see 6 inches or a foot of these things.
But Sam,
Okay,
the bottom line
under-
is, these are the city officials. This is the beginning of who approves it. And then it goes to the full council.
I'm aware of that.
We listen to all our support staff, you know, conservation and building and so forth like that. But, you know, it gets here, and then the subcommittee will move it on to the full council. You know that.
Oh, I know that, but I'm just addressing the aesthetic question about these storage containers, where the council is very concerned about the aesthetic nature of these storage containers, which are barely visible from the street, okay? Barely visible.
Are visible, though.
Okay, I'll grant you that, Counselor. So, that's
Attorney
okay.
Akanian, if you use something besides storage containers, you wouldn't need a 6-foot vinyl fence.
fair enough,
That
fair
people
enough.
would be looking at, which
enough.
to me is just as bad as the storage containers. Counselor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want to put it on the record that I'm completely indifferent that they're using storage containers or not. So whatever you need to do the job, I'm fine with that. Having lived with that eyesore of a house that's been there for years, whenever I travel eastbound on Route 20, I see that house before I get on Route 20, and that corner is a complete mess. And no one sees what's there if they're heading westbound, because it's obstructed by trees and stuff, and I assume that that would also be obstructed. If the fence is put in the way, no one's gonna notice the fence unless they're coming up to Senzo. And from my perspective, if it's blocking an ugly house, I'm fine with that. So I think the fencing is an adequate solution. I think the idea of what you guys wanna do is basically stack 10 units, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, opposite. You know, that's sculpturing it into the property area. So I understand what you're doing with that. I think that any other solution would require major changes to what's already on the property, plus you have to address the proximity to wetlands as well. So it's not a perfect solution, but it does work with storage containers. And I do believe putting the fence up would actually block the majority of view, that no one would care that they're driving by and not even notice that these containers were there. I think it's important that no matter if there's storage that's close to Route 20, we need to have an obscure fence so that some idiot doesn't stop on Route 20 and tries to dump stuff into their storage bin directly from Route 20. So that I'm fine with. So I don't think anything as far as storage, this goes to Route 20, is going to be viewed from Route 20 anyway because of safety considerations. So I just want to put this up. I do think, that, you know, we're screaming at the last minute to try to get this thing done. I don't see how it could be done within the year, but I understand the concern that's going on. So not sure how to move forward on this.
Thank you. Council Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't personally have a problem with, I remember us talking about storage containers. I mean, storage container, that's a very broad term, so you could have really rusted ones with holes in them, but I doubt you're gonna use that for your storage. So like, what I would be concerned, you know, are they painted, and can we put, do they just look nice? So they're not, you know, rusty and ugly, but they're just big metal containers. I think it's a really creative use of thinking about reuse, recycle, repurpose these containers. I think it's environmentally a great thing to do. They're used frequently, and could we just put something in the, to me, it just matters, are they painted so that they look clean and, you know, relatively good, and we could just put that in as a condition in the special permit, no?
Any other comments? I guess there are some choices you have to make. You can, I don't know if you need to withdraw this. We can just let it die. You can resubmit it in the new year, and as you said, go
Madam,
through the
point of
public hearing
information?
again.
You can't let it die. It's a special permit. It gets approved by default if the council doesn't act on it.
That's true.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the period would have to be extended. Is that your understanding, Counselor?
That is, you can submit an extension for our December 18th
Right.
meeting to move it into
Well, it's December.
2024. And if the solicitor rules that the Mullen rule will apply to the new councilors, that they can review the information similar to how a sitting councilor that misses a public hearing, then they'd be able to participate. But I don't have the answer to that question.
Yeah, but
So
even if they didn't, we could still extend it. In other
You
words,
you
if
can still extend
there were
it.
8 votes available.
That is correct, that's right.
Well, I mean, I think that's the prudent choice, because it's the one chance we get to not have to resubmit. So it's your suggestion, if I'm reading the tea leaves, this committee would not be leaning towards supporting this.
I
this
have not
evening.
heard a motion from anybody, but I would guess, I see a hand raised. Councilor Wagner?
I would like to move, to add a condition that they must be painted and not look, I don't have to get the words, but something about paint, something about the aesthetic, they need to be painted and clean looking. And if that was a requirement in the special permit, I would be prepared to make a motion to vote on this evening. So I would move to amend the special permit to add language about painted, clean-looking containers. I don't know if anyone wants to.
I'll
I'm
second
sure the
that.
solicitor could come up with the appropriate language. There's really nothing currently in the order that even talks about what it looks like. It's only the plans, and the plans are only, there's no actual drawing to look at of any
Right,
kind.
right. I mean, I could easily, but I have to change the findings now to take into account Tom's 2 comments, so.
Or those could be done by the solicitor
Yeah,
with the
that-
notes
that
from
could be done.
this committee.
I
Madam
mean,
Chair.
I don't wanna, I don't,
The issue, though, is still getting it done by the end of the year, because if it at the 18th meeting, it's got to be referred to the solicitor. So that means that it would not be on an agenda until January.
that I understand, except I always thought that if this was a positive vote from the committee, we could get stuff to the city solicitor prior to the 18th. Is that crazy? I don't know. I don't do this every day.
That's what the law is.
We have asked him to do it. Whether he can do it is up to him. I mean,
So in the
we
past,
just had one where he worked with the attorney and were able to have language.
between committee and council.
Yes. So we were able to have a final document, but I don't know that that's something we. Counselor Nabin?
maybe we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit on this, of timing and everything else, to see, why don't we see if we get a positive vote out of committee in the first place, and then
Yeah, but
if
I'm
it's
just-
not, then you can talk about an extension, or we can talk about
Oh,
other
we could still
motions.
do that even if it was a negative vote? We could?
Well, I would probably encourage you to take the prudent choice that you mentioned and ask for an extension versus taking a negative motion, but that's, I'm saying if the people want to make a motion for a positive, you might as well see if you have the votes before we keep here and having a discussion about whether the solicitor can actually get there when he's not here.
How do you
and
know
we're
if you
just-
have the votes if you don't hold the vote, though?
That's my point.
Just,
So Counselor
sure.
Wagner suggested that, if we make an amendment to do a painting, that she would be willing to make a positive vote. If that carries, then we can have a discussion. If it doesn't, then we're spinning our wheels and we can talk about the next steps.
So I guess the question is where it gets put in here, or what the building looks
oh, it
like.
would have to be a separate
Madam Chair?
paragraph.
Counselor Doucette.
I have a question as far as, so this is in plan, you guys are working towards this. Are you gonna buy new containers?
Yes,
So they're gonna be brand-new containers?
brand new containers. and you
Okay, so
choose
we
the
can make a
color.
reference saying, brand-new containers, consistent coloring, done. In other words, don't worry about the paint, they're new containers, they'll look good. This is what the concern that Council Wagner had. If they're gonna be new containers, construction will include new containers, and consistent paint coloring. That is agreed to by the planning board, or by, site plan review, So they don't end up as neon either,
All right, I guess I will go back to the comments of Counselor Hotzing. I'm not approving anything that I don't see a picture of what it looks like. I don't, just, even if they're just vaguely saying new, I want to see what this will look like from Route 20 looking at it, Route 20 driving east, and Route 20 driving west, because my sense is you will still be able to see these containers when you're on 20. That fence isn't going to be along the side of it, it's just going to be at the front of it. And I
Madam Chair?
do not agree this is something that we, for a pre-existing non-conforming, that we need to approve.
I understand that. I know this property unfortunately all too well. The house itself is already recessed below the actual line of Route 20. It sounds like from the conversation that you were saying is basically the lower stack is basically in the basement and the top stack is the first floor. So if the fence is close to Route 20, then it's gonna be a hill grade to go up to the fence anyway. So you may not see the very tops of the buildings even from DeCenzo, okay? And maybe we need to get some picture to show CGI, to show how that is with a fence like that. But
And if you read number 4, incorporation of submissions, all plans, photo renderings. What photo renderings? We don't have any.
Excuse me, none of that was part of the initial, I thought we had.
They changed. What you sent
Not
us
the, not the, not the
originally.
actual storage units have not changed. The only thing that's changed is we've moved the building a few inches. There's nothing that's changed about the storage facilities. Counselor, with all due respect, I have never served on this august body, but my dad did for a long time, and I remember him telling me one thing when I went, he says, the first thing you do is you go to the ward counselor whose ward the project is in, and they're the ones who are the most important person here. So I'm going to implore this committee today to go ahead and positively vote this project. Enough is enough. We've made change after change after change. We've done wetlands improvement after wetlands improvement. This is a small adjustment to an existing storage facility that is going to get rid of an eyesore and replace it with nice fencing and 10 new containers. We're not going to be responsible for the beauty of the entrance into Marlborough on this one storage facility. We're going to do the best we can at a reasonable expense. Now, and I understand, if the Urban Affairs approves this, which I would implore them to do, that it would be on my on my responsibility to get the city solicitor's office to approve the final version. I understand there would have to be a suspension of the rules to bring it forth on the 18th. I've seen many of these things occur over the years. That's what we're going to ask today.
All right, I'm going to go through, since we haven't really gone through the actual language of this special permit. It does, Counselor Ossing?
So you do have, just so you know, Counsel Wagner made a motion and Counsel Doucette seconded, so you do have an amendment before you that you need to take up at some point. Doesn't have to be right now, but just so that you...
And I guess my concern is she didn't give us language. I mean, and I had commented that I think the solicitor could figure out what the language would be, but
I'm happy to do that, Madam Chair, if you'd like.
give us language,
Yeah.
okay?
Add item 10 and say containers must be new containers.
How about if we make 9, 10, and put a new 9?
Okay.
And we actually need to add a new one anyway because of the comments from,
Two new ones
two
besides.
new ones, yes, if we're gonna add the screening.
So 9 would be the container language.
So, I'm sorry, will you repeat it one more time?
Containers must be new containers.
I'm gonna say the containers used must be new. Okay? I'm just gonna put that in there unless we want to actually take a vote on adding the language in for each of these individually. Are we okay with just amending that, adding that one in? By consensus, we'll add the other comments from Mr. DePercio. All right, so we're gonna start at the
Chair?
beginning.
Madam Chair,
Yes, I'm sorry, Council
just a
Pullman.
quick comment. I know I'm sure the solicitor will alter the ordering, but I do think it should be further up near the lighting section rather than near the compliance with applicable laws in the recording of decision in terms of the order.
And I'm sure he'll
Okay.
put it where he thinks it's appropriate to,
Okay.
so.
Do we want to amend it to also say that the containers match one another so that they're brand new and that they are alike?
And matching
Must be new and,
colors.
And matching colors, sure.
matching colors, okay.
Madam
So-
Chair,
Counselor Nabin,
I can't believe I'm getting into this argument about the containers I don't even like, but instead of matching, perhaps we should just say the same color, so that, there aren't complementary multiple colors on these shipping containers.
the same colors, okay?
But just procedurally, Counselor, so that's just a suggestion to go into the findings.
Yes,
And we will make 2 other suggestions, those 2 that you see
well,
from.
I will make them and the
Okay,
count.
so
and the
then that
committee
can
will
be one vote, it wouldn't have to be,
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I, rather than
Okay.
taking individual votes, so. All right, we'll go back to, subject to the following conditions. D1, the typical construction in accordance with applicable laws, I can't even speak. Number 2, a site plan review. It's further subject to detailed site plan review. I think they've given us some comments, but you will have to go back. Number 3 is the modification of the plans. Notwithstanding conditions 1 and 2, the city council may approve engineering changes, so long as said changes do not change the use as approved herein or material increase the impervious area of the use, reduce the green area, alter traffic flow, or increase the size of the building. Number 4 is the incorporation of submissions. As I said, it's the plans, photo rendering, site evaluation, briefs, and documentation that have been submitted. Number 5 is storm, water, and erosion control, with the addition of the comments from Engineer DePercio. This currently reads the typical language, I think, of stormwater and erosion control management. The applicant, its successors or assigned, shall ensure its site superintendent during construction is competent in stormwater and erosion control management. The individual's credentials shall be acceptable to the engineering division. They shall be responsible for checking the site before, during, and after storm events, including weekends and evenings. They should ensure that no untreated stormwater leaves the site, and shall ensure compliance with the approved sequence of construction plan and the approved erosion control. And we will add to the end of that, stormwater from new impervious surfaces such as the proposed walkway shall be managed through new infiltration structures. Stormwater from the gravel parking area shall be managed through new vegetated swale, buffer strip, or equivalent. These measures shall be approved during detailed site plan review. And then quickly looking again at the site plan, I'm wondering if Mr. DePercio's comments are, it looks to me like the stairs are in the 30-foot wetland no disturb zone? The very corner of them?
Actually, the stairs are not, so
That gray area,
the gray,
okay.
the gray line is the existing
The
house.
existing, okay.
And so the blue are the
You're right on it.
large concrete blocks, which the outer extent of that is actually going to be buried underground. So if you look at the cross-section detail on the upper right inside the cloud, the blue blocks there kind of show what's going on. You've got the large, these are large 4-foot by 2-foot by 2-foot concrete blocks. The lowest one coming outward, which is why we're showing the blue line in the plan view. The top one only being 2 feet wide, but even those are held outside of the 30-foot from the wetland. So everything was shifted so that all the new construction is outside of the 30-foot from the wetland.
Okay.
And then, in addition to that, we also show the, okay.
All right, so we're adding Mr. DePercios to the end of number 5, and then we need a new language to add in the screening. The site shall be screened from view from Boston Post Road with fence and/or vegetation. The applicant shall request permission from Mass DOT to plant vegetation within the roadway layout in front of the proposed fence. And you and he can determine where all of that goes. Numbers.
I have to work with him on that, and
Number 6 is lighting. The exterior lighting shall be downward facing and shielded to minimize impacts of neighboring properties. Number 7 is traffic flow. You shall install and maintain signage that directs drivers to enter, exit via the existing entrance to the premises. Number 8 is compliance with applicable laws, and number 9 is our typical recording of the decision. And anybody have anything else that they want to question or have added to it? So those 3 additions would be added. All right, so now we need a motion.
There was one on the table to add the modifications that we never voted on. Do we vote on
I'm
that
sorry?
first? Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilor Wagner proposed changes. Do we have to vote on those, or are those already agreed to?
I thought we agreed we were not voting on each change individually.
No,
They
but
were
the
all going to
total-
be
okay, the total
incorporated, and there
changes.
would be one vote to amend, to vote, to
As amended.
Okay.
the
Do you want that?
amended decision.
Oh, so I move to approve the special permit as amended.
And I'll second
It's
that.
been moved and
Second.
seconded to approve the amended decision on a special permit. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 3, all those opposed? All right, it carries 3 to 2. We will see if this is on the agenda on the 18th, and if it is, then we'll suspend the rules for it to be voted on with the recommendation of committee, see what happens.
I understand, Counselor. I understand it's a long shot. I get it. I'll
Madam
do
Chair?
everything in my power to work with the city solicitor's office and address any remaining concerns if I can. We'll do the best we can. If it
Okay.
doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Counselor Doucette?
Can we have a vote to send it to the solicitor before the meeting?
Because there's no way to report that out. It would be in the minutes from today, but they would not be stated until the 18th. So it just like we did with Sassaville. We asked the solicitor to have it in proper form for last night's agenda.
Okay,
We never took it up.
right.
It was
But
ready
could
to
be done.
go.
So
So-
it could be in final form,
All right.
Thank you.
With that, we are finished with this part of the agenda. We'll give you a couple of minutes to get everything. Thank you.
With 6
All right, we're going to take up, the agenda actually has 3 items on it, so just for anybody listening at home, order number 23-108-964, the proposed zoning amendment to retirement community overlay was withdrawn last night, so it is no longer in the committee. We will go to order number 23-108-951, the proposed zoning amendment to Chapter 650, zoning of the code to add a new section to create the Red Spring Road Overlay District. Attorney Falk, you are here. You can introduce. I know you gave us a new copy today, and we got some documents last night. I'll let you begin.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. And with me is Bob Duran, President of our Condo Board of Trustees, and our engineer, Bob Parente. So since we met with you last, which was 3 business days ago, seems like a long time ago to me, but it was only 3 business days ago, we met with the building commissioner, conservation officer, and the city engineer yesterday to go over some of the changes that were requested and discussed at the last Urban Affairs Committee meeting and that we've heard from the planning board and others throughout our time before the council and the planning board. So the red line of the ordinance that I submitted to you earlier today incorporates those changes. So those edits show changes from the last version that this committee saw last week. I can go through them with you, kind of walk you through what the changes were. But the other item I wanted to bring to your attention was we had included with this submission a large plan that hard copy was distributed last night, showing the various exclusive use areas within the parcel that will be part of the overlay district. Exclusive use areas where the individual unit owners have their homes and principal structures, and where they have authorization through the condominium association to do additions to their properties and add accessory structures and the like. It was a request that this ordinance incorporate or reference a plan that would show those exclusive use areas. And so the plan that you have that we submitted dated April of 2023 shows those. What I also submitted today was a concept plan, which we would finalize before this proposed order would go into final form, showing what we're calling the building envelopes within the exclusive use areas. This is something the building commissioner had asked for, which is, okay, you're limited to 29 exclusive use areas, and you can build within those exclusive use areas, but are there limits on what can be built within those exclusive use areas? And so this building envelope concept is 20 feet from Red Spring Road and 15 feet from exterior boundaries of the exclusive use areas. That would be essentially a 20 in the front and 15 on the sides and rear of the exclusive use areas. That would be similar to what a zoning setback would be in an ordinary zoning district. So the red line that I have before you incorporates that plan. It's undated right now because we haven't finalized it yet, but you have the concept before you. Just high level, the changes that we made in section 650-50A, at the request of Priscilla Ryder, we put additional language in terms of what the purpose of the overlay district is. This often comes up in future years when folks are trying to interpret what does this all mean, why do we do this. Ms. Ryder thought additional language here would be helpful, and I agree with her. So we clarified that part of the reason we're doing this is to incorporate an existing condominium neighborhood within the zoning ordinance. Section C regarding special permit granting authorities, one thing we discussed was the fact that the Zoning Board of Appeals right now handles special permits for pre-existing non-conforming single and two-family dwellings. And so we we changed that the zoning board of appeals would be the special permit granting authority for those uses as they may come up. City council would retain jurisdiction over non-single-family uses. If you flip to section E, this is where we incorporate the, what we're calling Exhibit B, which is the plan that would show both the exclusive use areas and the building envelope. So we have both text support for this, where we have a building envelope, which is the exception to this requirement that we wouldn't have internal setbacks. Well, we would, because we're gonna have 20 feet from Red Spring Road and 15 feet from side and rear boundaries within the exclusive use areas. That's the building envelope that would apply to each exclusive use area. And we reference the plan that shows these, that would be part of the zoning ordinance. Further down in E2, this is something that the building commissioner had asked for, which is clarity in terms of maximum size of accessory buildings that would be allowed within the exclusive use areas. So we have the greater of either 50% of the gross floor area of the principal building or 1,500 square feet. You recall that we have a cap on single-family dwelling floor areas at 3,000 square feet already in there. So we have a pretty good, clear idea of the maximum amount of accessory buildings that would be allowed in the district. And then further down in E, there's a new E6. This is something that Priscilla Ryder had asked that we clarify, which is separate from the 10-acre common space that we've talked about before. Within the 40 acres that are part of the overlay, there are a few pockets of common area. They're not part of the exclusive use areas, the 29, but they're common areas that are part of the condominium. We're looking for some clarity on what the regulations would be there, and so we have that provision there, which is that they may not be developed except for what we call common facilities that would be accessible only to the condominium unit owners, and that would require a special permit from the zoning board of appeals. So it wouldn't be as of right. You'd have to go to the ZBA, and it could only be something that is a common facility available only to the unit owners, not something open to the public or some new use. And then finally, the new Exhibit B is the reference to this plan that we had talked about. In addition, there was a request from the planning board in their favorable recommendation on this that what we're doing here give the city a right of first refusal over the 10 acres that I referenced before, the 10 acres of common area that are not part of any exclusive use area. They're not adjacent to the lake, but they are there, currently undeveloped. We have talked many times about how the goal of the Board of Trustees is to convey that land to the city or a conservation group for open space purposes. I didn't find a way that we could do this through a zoning ordinance, but what I thought was we could look at this at the same time. So I provided you with a draft agreement of first refusal. So this would be a legal document where the condo board of trustees would grant to the city, and the city would, it's an agreement, so the city would agree to enter this. Right of first refusal. So what that means is if at any time the condominium association had an offer to purchase those 10 acres, we would have an obligation to notify the city, and the city would have 120 days to match that offer. It's similar to how chapter land, chapter 61A, 61B land is treated, where the city has a right of first refusal, has a time period to figure out how it's going to pay for it and what the conditions would be. And so this would go on record, so it would run with the land, and it would be something that would be there to protect the city's interest in this land. At the same time, separately, the Board of Trustees will be working with the city to do an outright sale or conveyance of the land. But as those discussions are ongoing, the city would know that they've got comfort that if somebody else came along, the city would have a right of first refusal on that property. So I have that submitted to the council as well. And I've talked a lot, so I'm looking forward to your comments and questions as we hopefully wrap this up. Thank you.
All right, I can either begin going through this, including the changes that were just made, or I can open it up if there are specific questions from anybody before we begin. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So back to C1, just in general. the zoning board, grant authority, city council shall be special permit granting authority in RSR for other purposes allowed by special permit. I was thinking, oh, accessory building, no, that's zoning board in someplace else, and then, so, seriously, what would come to the council out of this?
So there are, to the chair, there are a handful, not a lot, but there are a handful of uses in the underlying A2 that are allowed by special permit, existing in the zoning. I can pull it out and walk you through them if you're
Okay, so
curious.
it's based on the A2 zoning?
Correct. A2 zoning, because we retain the uses in the A2 zoning underlying, and so any of those that would require a special permit would come to the city council. It's only single-family dwellings and accessory buildings beyond the cap in the ordinance
Yeah.
that would go to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, I appreciate that.
Okay, so the order, 650-50 Red Spring Road Overlay District, the purpose and objective now has the additional language. The establishment goals of the RSR are to incorporate an existing condominium neighborhood within the zoning ordinance, to encourage improvements to existing structures, and to regulate modifications to a unique lakeside residential community. The location has not changed from what we had. The prior meeting, we discussed that they're changing the 50 acres to 40, so that's not new, but it's new to the original. C is the authority of the building permit granting authorities, now plural. City council, looking at the wrong one. The zoning board of appeals shall be the special permit granting authority in the RSR for single-family residential uses. The city council shall be the special permit granting authority in the RSR for other uses allowed by special permit, as we just discussed. Number D is use regulations. I do have a question. It's the following uses are permitted as of right in the RSR. Single-family dwellings. I'm wondering if it is redundant or if it's a good idea to specify 29 existing single-family dwellings.
That's inherent here because we're limited to 29 exclusive use areas, and we may only have one single family within each one. I think that's already clear, but,
I guess I like it because you read it early in the document, and it makes it very clear that's all that's there. So if anybody objects to making that clarification where it says 29 existing single-family? All right. The up to one boat club that was on the original is gone. We have B, uses allowed as of right. Those are all current and were part of the original. Number 3 now, the changes that were discussed before, it's the use is not specified in 650-50D1 and 650-50D2. The dimensional regulations for lots in a condominium form of ownership now has the language added in number 1, except for a building envelope within each exclusive use area set 20 feet from Red Spring Road and 15 feet from the side and rear boundaries of each exclusive use area, substantially as shown on a plan entitled Condominium Site Plan, Red Spring Road and Colonnade Drive by Chappelle Engineering Associates LLC, last revised December, do you have the date off the top of your head? I'm sure we can.
this plan is forthcoming because we're going to be amending the plan that you have in large form hard copy so that we can show the building envelopes within the exclusive use areas, so.
All right, and next here too as Exhibit B, so that will be
Yep.
forthcoming, as you said. And number 4, the maximum number of exclusive use areas in the RSR shall be 29, laid out substantially as shown on Exhibit B. The maximum, or number 2, is the notwithstanding, everything is subject to the following dimensional requirements. The couple of questions I have are in D, maximum building height, 2.5 stories. Looking at the document you gave us yesterday and going through the last couple of pages that has each house, there is one that is 31.2 feet. So I know stories and feet always get confusing. Can we either put what 2.5 stories is in feet or put a foot?
Well, stories, through the chair, stories are not necessarily, have a clear number of feet. And the ordinance, the zoning ordinance elsewhere defines what is a story and how we measure building height. I would prefer to leave that one alone if we could. I'm not familiar specifically with the example that you gave, but it is not impossible that a building of that height could be 2.5 stories, but I don't know
I think
specifically.
it was a 2-story house, so that additional half-story, I guess,
It's
is,
the A2 zoning height.
I'm sorry, A2 zoning is 2.5. Well, and I don't have it with me because we just did it, but we went through this when we did this downtown zoning, and I thought we put in a specific number when we talked about stories.
I think it's in the rules and regulations, actually.
Yeah, if I may, A2 zoning in almost all residential zones in the city, the maximum height is 2.5 stories.
2.5
It doesn't have a
stories.
number.
Okay, if everybody's comfortable with that, then, yeah, I know, I thought we had the discussion with the solicitor, even in the building commissioner, on what a story was. The other question I had was the maximum gross floor area of a single-family dwelling is 3,000 square feet. I found a house that has 3,084 and one that had 3,054. So do we want to up that to 3,100?
Well, if I may, our condo documents already have that limitation, so those particular structures would be pre-existing non-conforming.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you were aware of them, and until we got what we got yesterday, I had no idea.
Yeah, this is consistent with our condominium documents, so we prefer to leave that
Okay.
one alone.
So then nothing additional to this would ever take a property or a structure to more than 30,000 or
Correct.
3,000 square feet?
Not without a variance, right.
Okay. Let's see, make sure I'm not reading redundant stuff. F becomes maximum accessory building floor area for an accessory building in a single exclusive use area, the greater of 1, 50% of the gross floor area of the principal building, or 2, 1,500 square feet, except as authorized by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And number 3 is now, I believe, changed to be the exception of structures erected prior to July 1st, 2023. All structures on a lot under a condominium form of ownership shall be set back a minimum of 15 feet from the RSR district boundary line. And I think that's new. It was 30, and that was where it was until... Is there a reason why it changed to?
Yes, Madam Chair, so we started with 15 because it made the most sense for existing structures and what were possible accessory structures that we knew folks had in mind. The planning board had requested 30. When we sat down with city staff yesterday and we worked out this building envelope concept, we thought that going back to 15 made the most sense to minimize nonconformities.
Okay. Number 4 is parking, which doesn't look like change. Number 5 is driveways, which is the same. A new number 6, condominium common areas substantially as shown on Exhibit B may not be developed except for common facilities accessible only to the condominium unit owners as authorized by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I don't know that the ZBA is going to like us giving them this, but that's okay.
You gave them a lot to do when you gave them single
We
and
definitely did.
two-family.
And so let's see, Exhibit A is amended where it just has it consists of Assessor's Map 30, Parcel 10, with the exception of a portion of said land with an approximate 10 acres as shown on the plan entitled Plan of Land, dated November 8th, 2023, and annexed here too. So does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments? Counselor Navin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions, and I don't know, point of order, are you planning to bring, I know the building commissioner came up last a meeting to give some comments. I know Priscilla's here. I didn't know if they were,
They are here. They're certainly welcome to come up to, I prefer that one, so we don't have to look backwards. Do you have questions specifically?
I just wanted to, if the building commissioner could follow up on the request. We all received the map, and so I just wanted to get his take on the map, and does it meet some of the things that he was looking to have, and I'd like to hear it from him.
The map we received yesterday, or the map that we received via the email today?
Both
Both,
maps.
okay.
And the maps yet to come.
The map and the one page of a map? The sketch?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question, please?
Well, I guess the question is, do you want to comment on the maps that we received yesterday? And then we received, and I don't know, Mr. Clerk, if you can put up on the screen maybe the sketch map that has the red outline, is that one you're specifically asking about?
So at our last meeting, Commissioner, you had suggested that it would be helpful if you received a certain number of maps. I want to make sure that the maps that we've received are what you are looking for and things that you feel will make it more comfortable to move forward in this decision, and get some feedback on that.
So we really just got a one-page document, which I assumed you're going to do throughout all of the pages of everything that sort of
Correct,
gave us
Madam
an
Chair. It's just to give an
idea.
example of what we'd be looking to do. This isn't going to be hand-drawn, but we wanted to give you a sense of what this would look like, the final version of Exhibit B.
And that goes along with the E1, where you've got in there that the 20 feet from Red Spring and 15 feet from the side and rear boundaries.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the map. This is what we discussed, and this is what the intention that we wanted to. I think they've achieved that.
And Commissioner, so having this map, do you feel this changes the needs for any of the overlay? I know you had recommended that this is the position the city wants to see move forward. In our last meeting, you still feel that this?
Yes.
Okay.
Achieve what the desired result, what we were looking for, so give clarity to the setbacks and how the structures will behave within these exclusive use areas.
Okay. And would you mind reiterating, just because I thought it was helpful the last time, just how this will actually kind of make this process move more smoothly for you? Because it's obviously a little bit of a different scenario that we've all got in front of us, so it'd be helpful, I think, to just kind of reiterate some of the challenges and how you'd be able to address those.
If they came before my office for a proposal for some sort of construction, they would provide this similar document to this showing the layout of where this proposed structure is going to be, where it's sat within this boundary, and that way we could tell it was in conformance with the overlay special permit, and they would be fine with that. Just a point for, I know you didn't ask about this, but you were speaking about stories and how they're constructed for relative to height. There is a definition in the zoning ordinance regarding height. If a story is not clearly established, then you would take 15 feet for each floor, and they're allowed 2.5 stories. It's measured from an average grade, and for the roof line, it's from the peak. You take the average from the peak to the eave, and you find a median point, and that's where you measure from to a measured point. So we can make a determination on a limitation on height if it's not clearly defined.
So 15, 30?
It's about 45 feet, what you end up with.
Okay, so certainly taller than anything that currently exists, but,
Verify things.
all right. Do you have further questions?
For the Commissioner, I do not know.
Any,
I do have some
Counselor-
further questions, but.
Counselor Landers?
I'd like to go back to the 10 acres. Maybe I missed something somewhere along the line, but I noticed you put a document out, and you mentioned tonight. The 10 acres, I think, abuts the bog at the high school, so it's quite a distance from the water. Is that 10 acres valuable? Is there some reason why, I have a lot of questions, and you can answer them all. Is that valuable land? I think you put it up as collateral for a loan. I mean, you've done a lot with it, but there's no desire for the association to hold on to that 10 acres. It seems like you've done some pretty good planning, that if you decide to sell it, the city has first bid on it, but, you know, if we can't act within 120 days, someone could come along. Now, if someone came along, Brian, what do you think they would do with that 10 acres?
I mean, the 10 acres aren't adjacent to the lake, you're correct. They're adjacent to Red Spring Road.
That makes them worth a lot less.
Arguably, they're along Red Spring Road, but that doesn't do us any good because that's not a public way and it's not easily done through a subdivision. There are two existing public ways that abut that parcel from the other side, not from Red Spring Road. So arguably, you could bring in a subdivision road and there could be some single-family lots developed there. That's not our plan, but it is technically possible, so.
It'd be Cullinane Drive.
Right.
Well, I didn't hear that.
Cullinane
No,
Drive.
Brian was speaking, I didn't hear that. It was an interruption.
Yeah.
What was that, Brian, now?
So there are two existing public ways on the neighborhood behind this parcel that have, this parcel has, it's not really a parcel, it's just a common area, where there is frontage. So in theory, you could bring those roads in, do subdivision roads, and put in a few single-family lots on that acreage. It could be developed. That's not the plan of the association, but it is technically possible. So the right of first refusal agreement that I put forward would, if accepted by the city and entered by the condo association, mean that if the condo association were to ever sell to a private party, the city would have 120 days to match the offer and buy the property. The condo association would have to notify the city. The 120 days, we pick the number based on, that's what the city has to comply with if chapter land is going to be sold. So for McGee Farm, for example, a few years ago, when that change of use, when that was up for sale, that came before the city had 120 days to decide whether it wanted to buy the property or not. So that's how we came up with that number of days. You know, private sector rights of first refusal will range quite a bit, but they're usually not that long. They give that amount of time because, you know, municipalities can't always act as quickly as a private sector, so.
Not to put you on the spot,
Priscilla
but do you have any idea what the value of that be? Now, if you put that up for collateral for a loan, there must be some idea what that land might be worth today.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
It's assessed about $450.
No, not assessed, what it's valued at, what, if you could sell it.
I would say $1 million or $2 million.
Now,
Maybe more.
that's a lot of money.
Let me just-
Association.
If I could just speak for 2 seconds. So we've owned the property for 3 years. We've been offered, we've been approached by developers and abutters from Cullinane Drive to buy parcels of that property. We've decided not to do that because we want to preserve it as open space. And so we're trying to work with the city to do that. Priscilla made some recommendations. We've adopted those recommendations. We asked Priscilla early on to put this parcel on the open space master plan, which when that gets done, you will see that it's on the open space master plan, which will make it eligible for state funds and potentially working with either a land trust or the city itself. So we're trying to be the good stewards of the 10 acres and keep that the way it is today as open space.
You know, I know it was brought up before. You people right now, the 29 present owners, have probably no desire to sell it.
Correct.
But things could change. People could change. Generations could change, you know, and this younger generation, they're a little different than we are, Bob, you know? So, I don't know.
They're more environmentally friendly.
What's that?
I said they're actually more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, except when it comes to green stuff.
But through the chair, that's the benefit of the agreement for right of first refusal, is that the city will have that regardless of changes in control and ownership of the condo association. The city will have that right of first refusal. So, you know, again, separate from that, the association plans to work with the city to sell the property outright to the city or a conservation group, but you'll have this in your back pocket as a fail-safe. If that doesn't work out in the short term, you'll have a right of first refusal if it ever goes to sell to private
I
hands.
don't know if it mentions in there, but, you know, if the city did buy it, Red Spring Road is a private way, so is this land landlocked? I mean, what could the city do with it? I'm the guy that wanted to buy McGee's property. I wanted to buy Morrow's farm. I probably would want to buy this.
This would add to the Holtz Grove Conservation Area. You know, Holtz, you know.
I know
of
Holtz
course, you
Grove
worked
well.
up
I
there
used
for
to
years.
chase kids down there all
We
the
used
time.
to- And there's trails that go all through there, Counselor. And we don't impede people from walking on our property.
That could change.
No.
Madam Chair?
I guess I'm through Madam
right.
Chair. That's,
Since
know,
we're
these are
talking about
questions.
it, at our last meeting, you did give us a map that was entitled Exhibit A. So in reading the agreement of first refusal, it talks about land shown as 10-acre common area on a plan entitled condominium. Is that the same document?
It's
or-
not. So the reference in the agreement for first refusal references the recorded condominium plan, which is, again, this agreement would be on record. So if you want to refer to land on record, you look to a recorded plan. So it's the same area. The Exhibit A plan that you're talking about is just zoomed in. If we use the recorded condo plan for Exhibit A, the ordinance would get quite heavy.
Okay, but it does also show where it could go into, from existing housing.
Correct.
So there is the ability to look at that if you have that document still. So Councilor Doucette's hand?
Thank you very much, I appreciate that. So, in the map, the condominium site plan, on the first page, they show all the different units and the layout and everything. This, first plan, major plan. Where are the 10 acres?
They're on this side.
Way
So
up-
they are
way up
in,
Like, is it marked off here, where the 10
on
acres?
that plan and on the top right.
They're on 15, sheet
On the
15?
right-hand side, that top down.
Okay, so the 10-acre parcel is the upper corner.
Sheet 2 of 21, you'll see it's noted, 10-acre
Okay.
parcel.
Okay, so it is contiguous parcels. It's a contiguous space, okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilor Perlman.
If we can, I would like to invite up Priscilla Ryder to also answer questions around, the discussions. I know there was some great work on this agreement of first refusal, and just as we've allowed the building commissioner to provide further context, it might be useful to also have her come up.
Certainly. Ms. Ryder, if you'd like to take the microphone, please.
While she's coming up, I just had a quick question.
Councilor Navin, do you have a question before she comes up?
Yeah, well,
or-
it's just about this, if you, Council Perman doesn't mind, Priscilla, you can keep coming up. On the agreement, this is a
The
nitpicking question.
first refusal agreement?
The right to first refusal agreement. There's space for the mayor to sign. Is the mayor able to sign this as a person who is an interested party?
I cannot answer that question,
Okay.
but certainly.
I just want to make sure that we don't have some sort of timing issue coming up, and, obviously we want to get something, if this is going to move forward, it'd be nice to have it executed.
And again, this is in draft form. The solicitor may think that that's not necessary anyway.
Okay.
The council can just vote on this, but.
Okay.
yeah.
Couldn't it be signed after the current mayor?
Yeah, I just, like, it'd be nice for it all to move together, so it's just dependent on the timing.
That's a good question for the city solicitor.
Yeah, I think there is the page that says they approved by the mayor. So is there another page where it's actually signed by?
It just has his name on page 5. I assume that line is going to be signed.
Again, this is a draft. It has not been reviewed by the solicitor, and he may find that it's not required. Just trying to be as expansive as I could so we weren't missing something. But if we cut back, we can cut back.
All right. So Priscilla. And Councilor Perlman, specific questions or just
Well,
general?
first, just an opportunity. I know it's exciting about the open space plan and this being an identified parcel and the conversations back and forth. I don't know if it'd be helpful for the committee to sort of hear a little bit more about what went into this and the additions that were made based on your feedback.
I think it was based on the reaction of, the planning board had recommended this, so that's where this came from, and that, I think it's a great way to just, get just to have some control, or at least some knowledge, what's happening to this property. And the association is very eager to try to sell it to the city, and again, when we're in a position to do that, then, that discussions would begin.
And to clarify from what was said earlier, that those discussions could be ongoing regardless of whether there was an offer, that's the intention. I just want to restate that it's not, we have to wait for an offer and then this kicks in, but that they actually want to be able to have the city purchase the land regardless of an offer being on the table.
Correct. The planning board, it was a good suggestion of the planning board to just, I mean, it just helps to, solidify some, an action. So it's a good way it's a good process.
Okay, anybody else with questions for Ms. Ryder? Other questions for anybody else? Are everybody comfortable with where we are in the draft that we have with the documents that we have?
Madam Chair, I just have one point, it's just for the agreement for the first refusal. Is that going to be effectively an Appendix C, Exhibit C? Or how's that going to get integrated into this?
So through the chair, I don't think that it would be, but the council is free to take them up at the same time. I don't think there's really any good way through zoning to have a right of first refusal. Zoning governs land use. This would be a completely separate agreement, but we're putting it out there. The council can agree to accept it, and once that happens, assuming the zoning goes through, we're certainly willing to enter into the agreement and have that go forward. So I would view them as going at the same time, but I don't think there's really a good way legally to have them cross-reference each other.
Okay, so these will be separate documents that would have to be voted on separately, and I'm assuming that the agreement for first refusal has already been approved by the association.
It is not. This is
Okay, so
relatively
that would also
new,
have
but
to
it
get
will
done.
be, and they'll meet relatively quickly to do that.
Okay, that's fine, I get that, and I assume that it would have to be first approved by the condominium association before it comes to the council, because, we want to make sure you guys are all for it before we vote on this, so,
Understood.
That's been our intention all along.
yeah, no, just wondering where you are in the process, that's all. And this agreement has to be drafted and agreed to, final draft, voted by you, then voted by us, so this is going to take a while compared to this. So, okay, that's all, thank you.
All right, so I guess we're also in the same dilemma as we were with the prior order on this one, that we're not at a deadline on this can carry over if we have to. I know that there was a desire to get it done by the end of this year because of the concern of new counselors.
So if I may, Madam Chair, I will put myself in the bad position of having to be the second attorney this week to really lean on the city solicitor to hope to get this in final form in time for the 18th. And one of the reasons is we have, with Councilor Orem having to recuse himself from this matter, we'll have 7 councilors that will carry over to the next term that will be eligible to vote on this. So we would, and I don't know the answer to this as to whether any of the incoming new 3 councilors will be eligible to vote on this, but I would note, I would really hate to have to bring any of them up to speed on this topic, number one. Number two, we'll have a new ward councilor over this property. And I think that is a greater concern as well. That ward councilor would, assuming they were even eligible to vote, having to get themselves up to speed on this topic. So if it's at all possible, I would hope that we could, I can do everything I can to make the solicitor's job easier to get this into final legal form in time for a vote on the 18th if possible. I think that would be in everyone's best interest.
All right, it's not like we're meeting on Monday, so there is some time, and as I said before, if he can't do it, then it's not happening, but we could certainly, we can ask him to do it, give him all the information. You can work with him as you have in the past on other issues. Did I see your hand, Councilor Wagner?
Right, so in that vein, then I would move that we approve the proposed zoning amendment for the Red Spring Road Overlay District as amended.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 650-50 Red Spring Road Overlay District language as amended. Is there further discussion? Any questions? Councilor Nabin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take a couple minutes to talk about this. I'll try and be brief because we've been here a bit and there's been a lot of back and forth tonight. This has been an education, to say the least, and I echo your sentiments about not wanting to bring some of the other counselors, some of the newer counselors along on this one, because I think you guys could still bring me along a little bit on this one. There's a lot of concern raised at the public hearing when we talked about this. This is obviously, we've talked a lot about Fort Meadow at the end of this legislative session, which as the Ward 6 counselor, I am both proud of and exhausted by. But there were a lot of concerns raised. A lot of people on the planning board, obviously the building commissioner, Priscilla, they raised a lot of concerns about this. I want to commend you guys for coming along and making some concessions. You have, I think, listened to some of these concerns and helped shape this project in a more responsible way. From the beginning, I have had a couple of concerns since the change in ownership. One, which we're not discussing here, is the fiscal impact to the city, which is coming along. Two is that we protect the overbuilding, the potential for overbuilding on Red Spring, which in this document you guys have certainly listened to the good work that the planning board did and have kind of protected that. And the third one is making sure that we can have a crack at the 10 acres. I truly believe you don't want any more neighbors. I hope that the city is able to figure out a way forward because this is, this is a tremendous opportunity. I know Priscilla's working hard on that open space plan. I know that once we get that open space plan, we can look at grant opportunities through the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. I hope we do that. I think this needs to be protected. I go back and forth about whether or not, how this works and how this, is equitable and makes it a little bit easier for you guys to do this. Red Spring Road is a very, very unique parcel of land in this community, and it does not fit into a neat box. I appreciate the building commissioner's comments on how this can help make this process a little bit easier. It is a little different. It is a little quirky. There is a benefit here for you all that we would be approving tonight, but I also think it's a benefit that would not be infringing upon a lot of people's time and energy to have to go through this process. So I will be supporting this tonight. I think this is a thoughtful way. I really appreciate the fact that you guys have made these changes. It makes it a heck of a lot easier to support it. I think it makes it a project that we can all be proud of. So with that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Council, for your advice and counsel over the last few months. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and I think we can all echo the comments that were just made. We do appreciate the work that you did and for the willingness to listen to the city staff in bringing the changes that we have tonight. Councilor Lander.
Madam Chair, thank you. This has been a real learning experience. And, I had some questions about the 10 acres, and I still have questions about the 10 acres. I mean, some of you people are talking as if, we'd buy those 10 acres just like that for $1 million, $1.5 million. But I don't know, we're gonna have a hard time buying a piece of land to do something with Richard School unless we tear the building down. But I'm gonna ask one question. 29 people, and I know most of you people, and you're all good guys and girls. You're benefiting by it. What is this doing for the city? I don't know who wants to answer that question.
What's it do for the city?
Yeah, what does it do for the city, Bob?
I'll tell you what it does for the city. It protects Fort Meadow. We got 50 acres of land on Fort Meadow.
Yeah.
That won't be developed, and that's gonna provide protection for the watershed that feeds our Great Lake down there, right? And it's gonna benefit not only Marlborough, but also Hudson. You look at the other side of the lake, and it's overdeveloped. You looked at our side of the lake, we've only developed 4% of the 50 acres, Don. So we're protecting the valuable resource that is Fort Meadow watershed. And you heard that same argument the other night in the Boston Scientific Project, and the same applies here.
I'm not gonna argue against that. That makes a lot of sense. But
Plus, in addition to that, the tax assessor gave us our assessments. Mine almost doubled. My assessment doubled. Many others down there, got a pretty good increase in their assessments. And so we're additional tax revenue to the city as well. We're not putting a burden on the school. There's only one child right now on the road. Most of us are over 60 years old.
Well, that's the point. That a lot of things are gonna change
Well, I don't know
over
if
the
that's
next
true,
few years.
because this was in my family before, and that's true of most of the people in this room. I look across this room, most of these people here had family members, fathers, mothers, aunts, uncles, who had that place before. And it's my intent to sell it to, or pass it on to my boys. So, you know, once you have something like that, you don't want to give it away, right? It's a beautiful, it's a great resource, it's a great quality of life down there, that Fort Meadow is, in the watershed protection is, and, you know, protecting the biodiversity and the wildlife, and we got Holtz Grove right in the back, and we got the high school.
Bob, I know that area well. I chased kids around
Oh, I
there
know you did,
for
Bill.
years.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, this is not a debate, so you asked a question, you got a response. I think we
We'd
can
appreciate your
go forward if you have further questions. Otherwise,
You recommending me?
both of you.
are.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the recommendation is to approve the overlay district as amended. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? And 1 opposed. So we will work with the solicitor. I will get a report written up. I'm sure you have the one additional change that I added. You can give him all your other changes, and hopefully we can get this. He, I guess, can tell us about the agreement of first refusal too, find out what the process would be if we need to actually wait until this is approved before we work on this part of it, which would then put it with, probably next year with the new mayor and resolve some of that issue, so.
Madam
If
Chair.
everybody's comfortable with, with not doing anything with this agreement yet, because it hasn't even been signed by the condominium association.
Right, so there's nothing we can do with that agreement. That has to come back. It's a preview at this point. Aside from that, motion to adjourn?
Oh, Councilor Perlman, did you have?
Yeah, I was just going to point of information that I'm not a voting member of this committee, so if anyone was wondering why I wasn't able to participate in the vote, I will be able to vote at the full council, but I'm not a formal member of Urban Affairs. Thank you.
All right,
Motion to adjourn?
it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are adjourned at 9:08.